It feels like it's a Monday. Okay. Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday night. And tonight I am so excited to introduce you to my friend, Liz Johnson. We've known each other through American Christian fiction writers for, I don't even want to think how many years, because I still feel like I just started writing a couple of years ago. Right. But Liz is a wonderful writer of contemporary romance novels, but they're really like vacations in a book because she's sets them on the Georgia coast and in Prince Edward Island up in Canada and just kind of all over as long as there's water. So Liz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to be chatting with you today, Kara. So I've been writing for several years now. My first book came out in 2009, and I just released book number 20, which sort of shocked me when I counted them up and realized I was quite that many books along. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I've been writing for almost 15 years now. And by day, I work in marketing for a nonprofit in the Phoenix area. And I live here in Phoenix. And let's see. And I've got 5 nieces and nephews who are just the absolute best. And so I love doting on them and hanging out with them.
So it's hard to believe that you've been writing enough that you have 20 books out. We were chatting about that a minute ago that, I'm got novella 35 and 36 coming out in October. You are working on book 20. How did you get to a point where you've got this many books out? How do you come up with all those ideas?
Oh yeah. I think coming up with the ideas has never been my hardest thing. I always have had story ideas. I think it's deciding which one I'm going to focus on and actually focusing enough to get it written and to develop the story into a full book. So for me, I've always had ideas, and whenever I think, I think I might be out of ideas, inevitably I'll read something or I'll travel somewhere or I'll see something and it will totally inspire me. I thought I'm in the middle of a contract right now, my second Prince Edward Island series. And I just thought, I don't know what I'm going to write after this. I don't have any ideas. And my agent called and was like, let's chat. And I was like, sure, but I don't have any ideas. And like literally a week before we had our conversation, I read something and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to write about. And I had 2 brand new story ideas like that.
I love that. So
yeah.
It sounds like you spend a lot of time just kind of being open and reading and seeing what kind of hits and pings. And I know that I often do the same thing where I'll be like, I don't have any ideas. And then as I'm just clicking through newspapers or, glancing through things, all of a sudden ideas kind of start pinging. Yeah. So how did you come up with the idea for the book that just released?
Yeah, so the book that just came out is called Beyond the Tides. And it is the story of a lobster fishing business. And Oliver and Meg Whitaker's dad owns this lobster fishing business, and he's about to sell it to Oliver, who is Meg's high school arch nemesis. And so she says no. She's not okay with that. She's been holding on to a grudge for 10 years. That's championship grudge holding, if you ask me. And so I think I got the idea for the story on one of my trips to Prince Edward Island. My mom and sister and I went on this lobster fishing tour with Captain Mark, top-notch tours out of Charlottetown. I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. He'll take you out and he'll teach you about like the lobster cycle, like the life cycle of a lobster. And I was like, I don't care. And then I was like, why am I so interested in this? It's fantastic. It was very fun. They'll let you reel in a trap, so you get to see what that's like. They let you hold a lobster. I nearly dropped a lobster. I was holding a lobster like this, and its tail was coming up under my arm like that. And I threw it at the first mate. I was like, nope, done. No more lobster for me. So,
oh my goodness. I think I would be with you on that one. I'd be like, I don't need to feel it like that.
That was enough lobster. I'm like, and so anyways, I was getting all this information and I just was like, this is so fascinating to me, but also like, the business of lobster fishing and how important that is to Prince Edward Island. I thought, so the last time we were there was in 2015 was the last time we were there. I've got to do the math. 2015 was the last time we were there. And the winter before, it had snowed 25 feet of snow.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what do you do with that much snow? You're a little tiny island. And they're like, yeah, we were like shoving it into the Walmart parking lot. And I was like, why didn't you just push it into the ocean? And they're like, no, because they couldn't afford to hurt the lobsters or the mussels or the other fishing industry, which is like the second largest industry on the island behind tourism, is lobsters and fishing. And I thought, I never would have thought of that, but it's so ingrained in them and it's so important to them. And I just fell in love with the whole idea of lobster fishing, and I decided I was going to write a book about it.
I love that. And that's one of the things I love about great fiction is often it's introducing us to something we would never know about any other way. Yes. And yet we end up having so much fun, kind of vicariously living in that space. And where did it go? Pam said that she just finished Beyond the Tides and loved it. She's already anticipating the second book. And Nina said that her favorite is Red Door Inn.
Thank you. I love the
Was
Red
that
Door
one
Inn
set on the north side of the island?
Yeah, so the Red Door Inn is on the north side. It's in a little it's in a fictionalized version of North Rustico, which is on the north side of Prince Edward Island. And then Beyond the Tides takes place in Victoria by the Sea, which is a real little tiny village. It's really small, but it's a little artistic and fishing village. And they've got a little community theater there. So I'm really excited. The next book in the series deals a little bit with pottery and ceramics, which is a big part of their culture there. And then the third book in the series will involve the community theater, which is brand new for me. I'm excited to write about that.
Oh, that's so much fun. And that's another thing that's great about being a writer is you get to vicariously do all of these careers without having to actually like invest your life in them. Yes. So it sounds like you're getting to be all kinds of different things, from lobster fishermen to artists and theater. That's so much fun.
Yeah. Yes.
So is there a career that you haven't explored in your books that you think would be really fun to dig into?
Oh, wow. One that I haven't explored yet. I'm always interested in things that would really stretch me as a person. Like, so I wrote a book about somebody who gives pirate tours in Savannah, Georgia. Like, I thought that would be really, like, I don't think I would like that. So I love writing about things that like would really stretch me. And I had an idea the other day for a social media influencer, which I think I would be terrible at. That is like not my gifting at all. But I thought, oh, that would be kind of interesting. Like, what if she had like this like really niche audience and was able to really meet a need for them through her social media. And so I think that would be kind of fun to write about, but we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, that's interesting. And especially for you to say that you don't think you would be good at that, because marketing is your day job. Yeah. When I first met you, you were in Nashville working with a publisher, and then now you're in Phoenix and you're still in marketing. So why don't you think that you could do the social media side or make that your life?
I love social media and I love being active on it. I think like the influencer side of like having to like be in front of the camera all the time would drive me bonkers. I really like to be behind the scenes, which is why marketing works really well for me as a day job. It just allows me to sort of be a support and to create the things that make the face of the organization that I work for, but not or like when I'm marketing my own books, I love to like put things out there, but I'm not always like the first person to be like, let me jump on video, or let me do that. like I love talking with friends, which is what makes this so great. But to just put myself out there, then sometimes I think I would be like, oh, that's a whole lot of me. And I don't know about that.
That's actually one of the reasons that I started Book Talk. Number one, I was missing seeing my writing friends at ACFW and places like that. Thank you, pandemic. But at the same time, I was like, it's so much more fun to introduce my readers to other authors that I really love and to kind of bridge that connection versus just always being, hey, read my book. And actually, this is one of Liz's books, but it does make it feel more genuine and not quite so, I don't know, like, hey, I'm all that in a bag of chips. Why did we say that? That's such a weird thing to say.
No,
but
yeah, I totally get that. It's about the relationship. It's about being able to, to build relationships. And I love that side of marketing. But I do feel like influencers very often, like top end, like multi-million follower influencers, like that they oftentimes lose their anonymity and they lose their ability just to be on their own. And I'm such an introvert that even though I really love people, I need time where I can just be on my own, just to pull back just a little bit. And so I think that part would be really hard for me.
Yeah, I'm not ready to have, people following me all over the place, like a Kardashian or Megan or someone like that, because no, thank you. I don't mind being in front and talking to people, but at the same time, I'm like, no, there's still should be a space that can be like that, safe. I'm just me.
Exactly.
So what's your favorite part of writing?
Oh man, my favorite part of writing is having written.
I feel that.
The actual writing part, I often feel like it's like going to the gym. It's like, I know it's good for me. I know I should do it. Once I'm there, it's kind of grueling. But once I've done it, then I'm like, yes, like I feel great after having done that. But the actual doing it is really hard for me. And sometimes it's like pulling teeth. But I will say that like, I love it when a story surprises me and takes me in a direction that I really didn't anticipate. And oftentimes that's because, like things in my life have changed or something's going on in my personal life that's affecting the way I'm writing. And I don't always I never anticipate those things. And then all of a sudden I'm in the middle of it and I'm like, well, this story isn't what I anticipated, but I love it. And it's in the direction it needed to go.
So is there one of your books in particular that you're like, this one, I thought we were going in this direction. And as I wrote, the character's life took it a completely different direction?
Yeah. So the book that just came out, Beyond the Tides, is absolutely that book for me. I had a plan. I knew where the story was going. I was like, okay, guys, it's going to be great. I sat down and I got started writing it. And then my dad ended up having a heart attack last April of 2020. And so here we are in the pandemic. My dad's in the hospital. We can't go see him because, COVID policies. And we got a call from the hospital and the doctor, my mom and I were going to go drop some things off that my dad had requested. And the hospital called and said, don't come, things are going south. And I'm like, okay, that's not good. And praise God, only by God's grace, my dad survived. He was flown to Phoenix and got a pacemaker. And now he's doing really well. He's doing amazingly well. And he has given me grace to share that story. As long as I remind everybody that my dad has been really, I'm so grateful for my dad because he has just pointed people to Jesus left and right. Like that is, while he's on earth, that's what he's going to do. And so he's been an amazing example for our family in that. We're so thankful to still have him. But that really threw a wrench in my writing plans. And I was like, Dad, this isn't about me, but also it's a little about me now. Like you're messing with my deadline, you're messing with my book. And I had plans in this book for one of the characters to lose a parent. And I was like, well, no, I cannot write that. No. And so usually writing isn't therapy for me, but in this case, it really became dealing with this sort of idea of like, how do you lean into relationship with someone when you don't know how much longer you're going to have them? Like
Mm,
it really
yeah,
was a
that's beautiful.
reminder of each of our mortality, and like we're not promised tomorrow. And that's true for all of us, no matter age or health or anything. But it just was this reminder of like, how do I begin to really lean into those relationships, even when that's scary, when that's
Yeah.
uncertain and that's hard. And so that became this huge arc in the story that I didn't know was going to be there. And yet it's one of these things where it's like, I look back at that and I'm just like, God showed up in a big way and helped me really finish this book in a way that that I hope is really honoring to him, but also honoring to families and relationships where we want to invest in those, even when it's hard.
I love that. And it's such a just a real statement that there are those times when the book becomes therapy almost.
Yes.
There have been times where God's been like, are you willing to really walk through this with me? Because this is as much for you as
Yes.
it is for anybody who might read the book. But we have to go there first. We
Yes.
have to be willing to mind those depths and to kind of see it as vulnerability with God on, okay, where are
Right.
we going with this?
Right.
And I do have to tell you, Nina said maybe you could use an anonymous influencer. Maybe somehow she's not revealing her identity. And I'm
Oh,
thinking that could be kind of a fun twist on the whole idea.
that could be a good twist. Oh, I like that. Thank you for that idea. I might borrow that.
Yeah, you never know. And Linda says, it's a God thing when God orchestrates,
Yes.
and really orders
Yeah.
what you think is just another book. And I don't think as Christian authors, you or I ever go, oh, it's just a book. It's just words. I mean, it's really the opportunity to partner with God in this creative experience and take on that part of his character that we're first introduced to in Genesis 1,
Yeah.
Genesis 1:1, and in the beginning, God created. And so it does become kind of this interesting dynamic, though, when you
Mhm.
have a life event like that and you still have the deadline,
Yeah.
but especially when it overlaps with what you thought you were going to write. I mean,
Right.
I'm with you. I would not have in that situation been able to write about, oh, this parent died, because I'd be like, no, that's a little too close to real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I could see where that would definitely dramatically change things.
Yeah. It definitely it shook my family and me to my core, and yet was such a, like, also such a reminder that like even in the midst of like they put my dad in they sedated him before they put in his pacemaker for several days just to try and let his body recover. He'd been through a lot of trauma, um, and so we're calling the hospital 3 times a day just to talk to the nurse because we can't talk to dad, he's not awake. And yet even through all of that, like just to hear and see how God was answering prayers, how he was like present in that situation. And it was like, as I was experiencing all that, I wasn't consciously thinking, this is going to show up in my book. But then when dad was home and he was doing well and he was, his normal ornery independent self, and, like, I don't need a walker, take that away kind of situation. He like, and then I had to get back to writing. It really became like, oh, all these things God was teaching me through this process, they need an outlet. And well, he's given me this book that I didn't even know was going to be this story. And he knew all along. And so God's faithful like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that most writers don't always anticipate, or
Mhm.
I think are at this point in time are kind of going, please don't let that be true for me, is how much marketing we have to do. I mean, it's not just writing the book. If
Yeah.
all we had to do is write the books and they just magically appear in people's mailboxes and on their Kindles, it would be amazing. But that's not what happens.
Right.
So as someone who's a professional marketer, what are a couple of pieces of advice that you might have for other authors on how to take some of the angst or the uncomfortableness out of marketing?
Yeah, I do. I think that marketing is really it can be very terrifying if, especially for first-time authors or sometimes for, for established authors, it's still terrifying, but it doesn't have to be. And I think what I try and focus on with marketing, really kind of two things come to mind. First of all is relationship over impressions. I'm not just trying to get as many people to see the cover of my book as I can. Yeah, I want people to see the cover of my book, and to know that it's available. But that's not what I'm pushing, especially through social media and even through emails and newsletters. I'm not just saying, hey guys, here's my book. I want to build a relationship with them. So I want to talk about, how can I pray for you? What's going on in your life? Tell me a story about a time that something special happened. Let me give some books away. Let me tell you about my friends who I love, like what you're doing right here, Kara. Like, just having opportunity to kind of share life together as much as we can virtually. And so I love that idea of relationship over impressions. And then the other thing I try and keep in mind whenever I'm doing any sort of marketing is, what problem am I solving for the audience? Like, what is it that what felt need can I meet? How can I help them right where they are? And maybe sometimes that just looks like, hey guys, need an escape to someplace really gorgeous. Like, have you been stuck inside since, March of 2020 and you're starting to pull your hair out and you just need a vacation? Hey, try these books. Here's some books that might be helpful. Or, but sometimes it's as simple as saying like, hey, do you need a recipe? I wrote a book about a chef and everybody wanted her recipes. And I was like, oh guys, I don't cook. Like, I'm a really terrible cook. So, so I should have thought and had some recipes available, but I didn't, but just having something that's going to help your reader, help your audience, help your friends that you're building relationships with on social media or through your email newsletter, just having things that are helping to meet their felt needs. And they don't always have to be like, heavy, like traumatic felt needs. Like sometimes, like I said, sometimes there are recipes, sometimes it's a word of encouragement, sometimes it's, hey, this scripture verse really spoke to me, or hey, have you heard about this brand new author who's doing amazing things? And I just want to, like, I read this book and I loved it. Let me tell you about it, kind of thing. And so all of that goes into building relationship. And when you build those relationships, I just think that you'll see a lot of longevity with those readers because they're finding a connection point with you that is so much deeper than, oh, please read my book.
Yeah. And I think that's such wisdom. And when you're focused on the person on the other side of the screen, I think it takes the focus off of how uncomfortable it may feel for us. And it helps us, like you said, what are those felt needs? How can I help? And so I think that can help remove some of the, all I'm doing is talking about me. So making it that two-way conversation can just help shift the focus, which can be great. So one of the things that you just mentioned though is, okay, we've all been stuck for a long time. So your books really do have that, almost that feel of, okay, I'm getting away on vacation because I'm going to these places that are near the water. And so what do you think what should people expect when they pick up a Liz Johnson book?
Yeah, well, I hope that they're going to find a lot of romance, a really, hopefully, a few tugs on their hearts. Probably there's going to be, there's some real life in my books, but there's also humor and joy to be found. And I really try and unpack that in my books. But also I think that I really try and focus on places that I have found to be really healing for my heart. Even just in times when I didn't know I needed healing. But I remember the first time I went to Prince Edward Island and it was so peaceful and so gentle. And I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know there was a place like that where like you can just turn off your phone, you turn off everything and you drive. And I just remember my mom and I were driving along the North Shore. We're on this little 2-lane road. There's no shoulder. There's a farm on one side, and on the other side is basically the ocean with like cliffs going down. But there's this giant house, and it's basically a castle. It's got a turret and the whole thing. So I'm like, it's a castle over there. And my mom goes, stop. And I'm driving and I'm like, what's going on? So I stopped the car in the middle of the road and she's like, I want to take a picture. And I said, okay. So she gets out to go take a picture, but I'm stopped in the middle of the road and I'm going, is anybody gonna like need to get around me? Or nobody came by. There was nobody there. And that for me was like that first like realization, I am by myself and it feels great. Like this, like I can be quiet and still here in a way that I can't when I'm at home. And because of that, like that's an opportunity for me to meet God. That's an opportunity for me to better my relationship with my mom, invest in that. That's a chance just for me to like just turn off the noise. And so I like to write books set in places like that. And I think even when we're like locked inside in our homes during pandemic and quarantining and and life feels but life feels stressful still. And so I want to write books where you can go and find an escape from all of that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's something we need. And I think like at the start of this school year, we're 4 weeks we're into the 5th week of the semester. And there's just this level of stress that I'm like, I think it's residual from not really being able to, even though I was really intentional this summer to try and take some time off because teaching last year at a university was so stressful, but I'm realizing everyone is still incredibly stressed from that. So providing those places of kind of peace and escape, I think is actually really important. It always is, but it's even more so right now as we're all kind of collectively going, when can we take a deep breath and life will be like magically back to normal? And so I think for us though, I don't know, have you ever been to Mackinac Island?
No, I haven't, but I've heard wonderful things.
I think you would find it to be like PEI or how you're describing PEI, because my entire family, all of the kids, my husband and I, when we get there, we do that kind of collective, oh, okay, we can take a deep breath, we can breathe. And it's an 8-mile round island. So it's, very small. I think PEI is bigger than that, but Anna Green Gables is one of my favorite books of all time. So PEI is definitely on my bucket list. And Candace Patterson was saying the same thing. It's on her bucket list.
Yes.
So until I can get there, I'll read your books.
Thank you. I always say that I should be on the PEI tourism board because I feel like it's my job to go around telling people, go to Prince Edward Island. It's worth it. Like, take the trip. I remember the first trip we went on, we went for 5 days and I thought, oh, that'll be plenty of time. It's a tiny little island. No, go for a week or more if you can. Like, just spend as much time. There's so many lighthouses to explore and just hiking and biking and trails and drives and shows. There's so much good music and dancing and all of that. You want to see it all and you don't want to miss any of it. It's so worth it.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. So for those of us who can't get to PEI yet, you should definitely check out Liz's books, because the one that just came out is set on the South Shore of PEI, and the prior series was on the North Shore, but she's also set some in Georgia and other places as well. Thanks so much for joining me tonight, Liz.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was so fun to chat with you.
Yeah, this is great. And for those of you who are tuning in, next week, Jamie Jo Wright will be joining us. So a completely different feel, from contemporary romance and vacations to Gothic split time novels. But if you haven't met her, you'll enjoy meeting her just as much as meeting Liz tonight. So thanks so much and have a wonderful rest of your week, everyone.